Lena stood at the large glass windows of the airport terminal, staring at the planes lined up on the runway. Her heart was pounding, her palms sweaty, and her stomach twisted in nervous knots. She had never flown before, and the thought of being thousands of feet in the air terrified her. Every announcement over the loudspeaker, every rolling suitcase, every rushing passenger made her anxiety spike. She gripped her boarding pass tightly, her fingers white from pressure. Around her, people moved with purpose. Families, business travelers, and tourists all rushing toward their gates. Lena felt small and out of place, her nerves making every movement awkward. She tried to take deep breaths, but each inhale only reminded her of the journey ahead. "I can do this," she whispered to herself, though her voice trembled. "Just a few hours, and it will be over." But life had a way of testing her nerves even before the flight began. As she turned to adjust her bag strap, she accidentally bumped into a man walking past her. Coffee sloshed from his cup, splashing onto his crisp, white shirt. "Oh my gosh! I'm so sorry," Lena exclaimed, stepping back. She looked up and saw him, tall, well-dressed, with an air of calm authority that made her feel even smaller. Her face turned bright red, and she fumbled for a tissue to help clean the spill. "It's okay," the man said calmly, his deep voice gentle but firm. "No harm done." Lena froze for a moment. Most people would have been angry, yelling, or at least annoyed. But he was different. His calmness confused her, and for a brief moment, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time, a strange pull, a curiosity she couldn't explain. I didn't mean to," she stammered, unsure what to say. "Relax," he said with a small smile. "Accidents happen." Lena nodded quickly, still embarrassed. She grabbed a tissue and tried to blot the coffee stains on his shirt, her hands shaking. Their fingers brushed briefly. The contact was accidental, but it made her heart skip a beat. She looked up at him, noticing his sharp eyes that seemed to study her without judgment. I'll get someone to help with the stain," she said, trying to regain her composure. "No need." "Really," he said, brushing off the incident. "Just take a deep breath. You'll need it for the flight." Lena's eyebrows shot up. How did he know she was nervous about flying? She had tried to hide it, had tried to appear calm among the bustling crowd. And yet, this stranger had seen through her fear. Before she could respond, the boarding announcement for her flight echoed through the terminal. Her heart jumped. It was time. The moment she had been dreading had arrived. I have to go," she muttered, glancing at him once more. "Don't worry. You'll be fine," he said, his eyes meeting hers for just a second longer than necessary. That fleeting gaze sent a shiver down her spine. Lena hurried toward the gate, her stomach twisting with a mixture of fear and anticipation. She kept glancing back, half expecting him to follow, half hoping he wouldn't. But he stayed where he was, calm and composed, watching her leave without a hint of judgment. As she boarded the plane, her hands trembled. She gripped the armrest tightly, her knuckles white. The cabin was filled with chatter, the hum of engines, and the faint scent of coffee. She tried to focus on her breathing, repeating to herself that it would be over soon. The plane began to taxi down the runway, and Lena felt her heart race faster. Every vibration, every rumble of the engine made her stomach churn. She closed her eyes, willing herself to stay calm. But the memory of the stranger, the calm man with kind eyes and a gentle smile, lingered in her mind. His presence, his patience, and the brief touch during the coffee spill replayed over and over, mixing with her fear. Suddenly, a thought struck her. What if this flight was more than just a journey from one city to another? What if it was the start of something unexpected? Her cheeks flushed at the idea. Could a single mistake, a single touch, really change her life in ways she hadn't imagined? As the plane lifted off the ground, Lena's fear reached its peak. The world outside blurred into clouds and sunlight, and her heart pounded like never before. She gripped her seat tightly, trying to stay calm, but a tiny spark of curiosity, about the man at the airport, about the journey, about what might come next, kept her from succumbing entirely to panic. Little did she know, that nervous first flight, that accidental spill, and that fleeting touch would mark the beginning of a journey that would change her life forever. Lena's heart was still racing as she fastened her seatbelt, her hands trembling slightly. She kept glancing out the window at the clouds rolling by, trying to distract herself from the fear that had taken over her body. Her first flight was proving to be much scarier than she had imagined. Every sound, the rumble of the engines, the occasional bump from turbulence, and the chatter of other passengers, made her stomach twist. Just as she tried to focus on her breathing, she felt a soft tap on her shoulder. She turned quickly, startled, and found herself face to face with the man from the airport. "Ethan." "Hey," he said quietly, a small, reassuring smile on his face. "Looks like you could use a friend." Lena's cheeks flushed. She hadn't expected to see him on the same flight, and her heart began to beat faster. I didn't know you were on this plane," she stammered. "I wasn't planning to be," he said, chuckling softly. "But I saw you at the gate, and I thought, maybe you could use some company." Lena nodded, unsure of what to say. She had been terrified, embarrassed, and overwhelmed, yet his calm presence made her feel a little safer. Slowly, she smiled back, and for the first time in hours, her racing heart found a hint of calm. As the plane took off, Lena gripped the armrest tightly, her knuckles white. The rumble of the engines made her stomach churn, and she squeezed her eyes shut. But she felt a gentle touch, Ethan's hand brushing against hers as he reached for the safety instructions pamphlet. The contact was accidental, but it sent a jolt through her body. Her heart skipped a beat, and she looked at him quickly, unsure if he had noticed. He met her gaze, his eyes calm and warm, and gave her a small, reassuring smile. That simple smile made her chest feel lighter, as if someone had eased the tight knot of fear inside her. "You'll be fine," he said softly, his voice steady. "Flying can be scary the first time, but you're stronger than you think." Lena tried to respond, but the words caught in her throat. She nodded instead, letting the nervousness mix with a strange fluttering feeling she didn't fully understand. Throughout the flight, Ethan stayed near her, offering subtle gestures of comfort. He pointed out the tiny clouds below the plane, explained how the engines worked, and even shared a funny story about a past flight that went slightly wrong. Lena laughed quietly, the tension in her body easing bit by bit. At one point, the plane hit a patch of turbulence. Lena gasped and gripped the armrest even tighter, her knuckles turning white. Ethan noticed immediately. Without a word, he reached over, gently taking her hand in his. The warmth of his hand against hers made her pulse quicken, but it also made her feel safe in a way she had never felt before. "It's okay," he whispered. "I'm right here. Nothing will happen." Lena focused on his words, on the calm in his voice, and slowly, her fear began to fade. She realized something surprising. She was starting to trust him. Not just because he was kind, but because he had noticed her fear and chosen to help her without judgment. As the flight continued, they talked more. Ethan asked her about her life, her dreams, and her fears. Lena found herself opening up in ways she hadn't expected, sharing pieces of herself with a stranger who had, somehow, become a comforting presence. She laughed at his jokes, smiled at his teasing, and felt a growing connection with him. A bond built not on familiarity, but on empathy, kindness, and understanding. Hours seemed to pass like minutes. By the time the plane began its descent, Lena's nerves had settled almost completely. She glanced at Ethan, who was watching the clouds outside the window, and felt a pang of curiosity. Who was he really? Why did he seem so calm, so kind, and so intriguing? As the wheels touched the runway and the plane slowed, Lena's heart swelled with a mixture of relief and excitement. The flight that had begun with terror and anxiety had transformed into something she never expected, a moment of connection, a spark of curiosity, and a hint of possibility. Ethan turned toward her, his expression soft but serious. "You did great," he said. "I know it wasn't easy, but you faced it. You're stronger than you realize." Lena smiled, feeling a warmth she couldn't quite explain. The nervous, scared girl who had boarded the plane hours ago had changed. She had survived, yes, but she had also found something unexpected, a connection with someone who had seen her fear, touched her hand, and somehow, without even trying, made her feel brave. Little did she know, that nervous first flight, that accidental touch, and the conversations they shared would be only the beginning. Something had started in that cabin, a bond that neither of them expected, a journey of hearts intertwined in ways that could change both their lives forever. Lena gripped the armrest tighter as the plane rose higher into the sky. Clouds stretched endlessly outside the window, soft and white, but they did nothing to calm her nerves. Each engine rumble, each sudden shake from turbulence, made her stomach twist. Her heart pounded like a drum, echoing her fear with every beat. Ethan noticed immediately. Sitting beside her, he kept his voice calm and steady. "It's okay, Lena," he said softly. "The turbulence is normal. Planes are built to handle it." Lena swallowed hard, trying to focus on his words. They sounded simple, but they carried a comfort that went beyond facts. It wasn't just about safety, it was the way he spoke, the way he noticed her fear without making her feel weak. She glanced at him, and for a moment, their eyes met. There was something in his gaze, warmth, understanding, and perhaps something more, that made her heart skip. The turbulence grew stronger, and Lena's breath quickened. She closed her eyes, trying to block out the shaking of the plane. Suddenly, a gentle hand covered hers. Ethan's hand. The contact was light but steady, grounding her in a way she had never experienced before. "You're not alone," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'm right here." Her eyes opened, meeting his once again. There was no judgment in his expression, no impatience, only patience, reassurance, and care. Lena felt her fear melting slightly, replaced by a fluttering she couldn't name. Her fingers tightened around his for a moment before she tried to pull away, embarrassed. "Thank you," she murmured, her voice trembling. Ethan smiled softly. "No need to thank me. Just breathe. Focus on the sky, not the shaking." She nodded, taking slow, shaky breaths. With his hand in hers, Lena began to feel a strange sense of courage. The flight was no longer just a journey through the air, it was a journey into her own heart, her own vulnerability. And somehow, Ethan had become part of it. Hours passed. The plane glided smoothly above the clouds now, but the emotional turbulence inside Lena continued. She found herself sharing bits of her life with him, her dreams, her struggles, and her fears. Ethan listened patiently, never interrupting, never judging. He laughed with her at little jokes, nodded at her confessions, and occasionally offered quiet advice. Lena realized something she hadn't expected. She was beginning to trust a stranger. Not just with her feelings, but with herself. The thought made her chest flutter. How could one person, in such a short time, have such an effect on her? Then, the plane hit another patch of turbulence. Lena gasped, gripping her armrest again. Ethan noticed immediately and gently held her hand tighter. "It's okay," he repeated. "We'll get through this together." The simple act, the warmth of his hand, the calm in his voice, made her heart race in a different way now. Fear mixed with something new, something thrilling, something she didn't fully understand. She caught herself stealing glances at him, noticing the way his calm confidence contrasted with her own anxiety. For the first time, Lena realized that her nervousness had brought her to this moment, to this connection. A small accident at the airport, a spilled coffee, a touch, each had led her here. And though she still feared the plane, the journey, and the unknown, she felt a spark of excitement she hadn't expected. By the time the flight began its descent, Lena's nerves had settled considerably. She watched the clouds parting below, the land slowly coming into view, and she felt a sense of relief mixed with anticipation. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew this moment, this flight, was unforgettable. Ethan turned to her as the plane touched down smoothly. "You did amazing," he said, smiling. "I knew you could handle it." Lena's cheeks flushed, not just from relief, but from something deeper. She smiled back, her heart fluttering in a way that scared and thrilled her at the same time. As passengers began to gather their belongings and the cabin filled with movement, Lena realized that this first flight had changed her. Not just because she had faced her fear, but because she had found someone who saw her, understood her, and, without even trying, had started to make a mark on her heart. Little did she know, the journey was far from over. That nervous first flight, the turbulence, the accidental touch, it had set something in motion. Something that would change her life in ways she never imagined. And as the plane doors opened and the fresh air of a new city washed over her, Lena felt it. A flutter of hope, a spark of curiosity, and the undeniable start of a story that had only just begun. The plane wheels touched the runway with a soft thud, and a wave of relief washed over Lena. She exhaled slowly, trying to calm the lingering tremors in her hands. Her first flight was over, and she had survived. The clouds had disappeared behind her, replaced by the busy city below, full of lights, cars, and people moving quickly. As she gathered her things, she glanced at Ethan. He was calm, standing with his jacket slung over his arm, his expression unreadable yet reassuring. For hours, he had been a silent support, steadying her through fear, holding her hand during turbulence, and offering gentle words when she needed them most. And now, standing in the bustling airport terminal, she felt a mix of gratitude and curiosity she couldn't explain. "I guess we made it," Lena said softly, her voice still trembling a little. Ethan smiled faintly, a mysterious glint in his eyes. "Yes, we did. And you handled yourself far better than you think." Lena laughed nervously, feeling the tension leave her shoulders, at least partially. "I don't know about that. I was terrified the entire time." "You were brave," he said simply. "Bravery isn't about not being afraid. It's about facing it anyway." She looked at him, studying his calm, confident demeanor. There was something different about him, something that made her feel small yet safe, curious yet cautious. His clothes were impeccable, his watch expensive, and even the way he moved suggested a life of power and privilege. But there was more than wealth. There was a presence, a quiet confidence that made everyone notice him without effort. Before she could ask, he handed her a small card. "Call me if you want," he said lightly. There was no pressure in his tone, only a gentle invitation. She took it, her fingers brushing his once again, sending a flutter through her chest. As they walked toward the exit, Lena noticed subtle things. The airport staff greeting him politely, the way people glanced his way with a hint of respect. Something about him hinted at a world she had never been part of, a world of wealth, influence, and power. The curiosity in her chest grew stronger. Who was he, really? Why had he been so kind, so patient, so attentive? Outside, the city lights gleamed against the evening sky. Ethan hailed a sleek, black car, and the driver opened the door for him. He motioned for her to enter. Lena hesitated. She didn't know him well. She didn't know his intentions. And yet, a part of her, a small, daring part, wanted to see where this journey would lead. She stepped inside the car, her heart beating fast. The interior was luxurious, far beyond anything she had ever experienced. She tried to focus on the view outside the window, but her mind wandered back to the flight, to the turbulence, to the accidental touch that had somehow connected them. "Where are we going?" she asked, trying to sound casual. "You'll see soon enough," he replied with a small smile, enigmatic and teasing. The ride was quiet at first, filled with the soft hum of the engine and the occasional flicker of streetlights. Lena stole glances at him, noticing the calm confidence he carried, the way he handled every movement with ease, as if nothing could unsettle him. And then, she noticed something else. He was watching her. Not in a judgmental way, but with genuine interest, curiosity, and perhaps admiration. Lena's cheeks warmed. She didn't understand why, but she felt seen. For someone she barely knew, Ethan seemed to understand her in ways few people ever had. The nervous girl who had boarded a plane hours ago was now feeling something new. An excitement, a spark, a sense of possibility she hadn't dared imagine. The car stopped in front of an enormous building, sleek and modern, its lights shimmering like stars. Lena's eyes widened. She had never seen anything like it. "Is this a hotel?" she asked, unsure what to expect. Ethan stepped out, gesturing for her to follow. "Not exactly," he said, his voice calm, almost teasing. "This is where you'll understand a little more about who I am, and maybe why this flight, this meeting, matters more than you realize. Lena felt a shiver of anticipation mixed with nervousness. She didn't know what awaited her inside, but something told her this was no ordinary encounter. Something told her life was about to change, in ways she couldn't yet imagine. As the doors opened and the warm light spilled out, Lena took a deep breath. This was more than a flight, more than a meeting with a stranger. This was the beginning of a journey into a world of mystery, wealth, and possibilities. And as she stepped forward, she felt the spark of curiosity, and perhaps the first hint of a heart ready to trust again. Lena stepped out of the sleek black car, her eyes widening at the sight before her. The building was enormous, shining under the city lights, its glass walls reflecting every glow from the streets. The entrance was lined with tall, polished columns, and soft music drifted from inside. For a moment, she felt like she had stepped into another world, a world of elegance, wealth, and influence far beyond anything she had ever imagined. Ethan noticed her awe but only smiled gently. "Welcome," he said. "This is where I live, and where I work. It's not just a house, it's my world." Lena's chest tightened. She had never been in such a place. Everything was polished, perfect, and grand. But beneath the beauty, she felt something else, expectation. This wasn't just a home, it was a world where everything mattered, where appearances and actions were judged carefully. Inside, staff moved efficiently, greeting Ethan politely. Their expressions showed respect, even a hint of curiosity. Lena felt small in comparison. She walked beside Ethan, trying to appear confident, though her heart raced. Every step seemed heavier than the last. "This is amazing," she whispered. Ethan chuckled softly. "You'll get used to it." They entered a large room where a few people were gathered, friends, colleagues, and family members. Lena noticed immediately that they observed her quietly. Some smiled politely, while others regarded her with curiosity, almost measuring her worth. She felt a flicker of doubt. Was she really meant to be here? Did she belong in this world at all? Ethan sensed her hesitation. "Just be yourself," he whispered. "That is all that matters." Lena took a deep breath and tried to follow his advice. She greeted everyone politely, answered questions honestly, and smiled when appropriate. Slowly, she felt some of the tension ease. She realized that despite the grandeur and formality, these people were human, just like her. But the challenge was far from over. Throughout the evening, subtle tests emerged. A colleague asked her opinions on things she barely understood, hinting to see if she would bluff. A friend teased her gently, watching how she reacted under mild pressure. Lena realized she needed to navigate this world carefully. She couldn't just be honest, she had to show intelligence, confidence, and grace under observation. As the evening progressed, she noticed Ethan watching her with a small smile. It gave her courage. Somehow, he believed in her, and that belief gave her strength to face every subtle challenge. During a quiet moment, Ethan led her to a balcony overlooking the city. The lights sparkled below like stars fallen to the earth. She felt a mix of awe and nervousness. "Do you like it?" he asked, his voice soft. "It's breathtaking," she said honestly. He nodded. "This world can be intimidating at first. People judge quickly, but true connection isn't about judgment. It's about honesty, courage, and kindness. That is what matters most." Lena thought about her flight, the turbulence, and the way he had held her hand. She realized that connection could happen anywhere, even in a grand, intimidating world, if there was honesty and courage. But suspense lingered. Not everyone had accepted her yet. A few eyes in the room still studied her cautiously, whispering among themselves. She knew that the path to belonging here would not be easy. Every smile, every word, every action could either build trust or destroy it. That night, as she left the balcony and returned to the gathering, she felt a new determination. She was no longer just the nervous girl on her first flight. She had survived fear, faced the unknown, and discovered a spark of courage inside herself. Now, she would face this new world with the same spirit. Ethan caught her glance and smiled softly. "You're doing well," he said. "Keep going. The hardest part is often the first step, and you've already taken it." Lena nodded, feeling warmth in her chest. She knew he was right. Every nervous moment on the plane, every accidental touch, and every interaction now was part of a journey. A journey that could lead to something extraordinary, if she stayed brave, honest, and true to herself. As the night drew to a close, she realized that life had changed again. She had stepped into a world she had never imagined, faced subtle tests of character, and discovered that courage and honesty could open doors she had never dared to knock on. And in the back of her mind, she knew this was just the beginning. There would be challenges ahead, moments of doubt, and perhaps heartbreak, but the connection she had with Ethan, the spark that started on that nervous first flight, was growing stronger. A new chapter of her life had begun, one filled with mystery, hope, and the possibility of love. The morning sunlight poured through the large windows of Ethan's estate, casting golden light across the polished floors. Lena stood by the balcony, looking out over the city below. Her heart still raced, but it was no longer from fear. It was from anticipation, excitement, and a sense of possibility she had never felt before. The events of the past days replayed in her mind, the nervous first flight, the accidental touch at the airport, the hours spent on the plane, and her first steps into Ethan's world. Every moment had led to this point. Every smile, every gentle word, every shared laugh had built a connection that felt fragile, yet incredibly powerful. Ethan appeared behind her, his presence calm and strong. "You're thinking too much," he said softly, though there was a warmth in his eyes that made her smile. "I'm just amazed," she admitted. "Everything has happened so fast. I don't know what to feel." "Feel it," he said simply. "Don't overthink. Sometimes life gives us moments that change everything, and all we can do is embrace them." Lena nodded, realizing he was right. She had spent so much time being afraid of flying, afraid of mistakes, afraid of being judged, that she had almost missed the beauty of connection, of trust, of a spark that could grow into something meaningful. Later that day, Ethan invited her to meet a few close friends and family members. Some of them looked skeptical at first, their eyes quietly studying her. But as Lena spoke with honesty, kindness, and confidence, she began to earn their trust. A smile here, a thoughtful word there, and she could see the subtle shift in their expressions. They were beginning to accept her, not just because of her charm, but because of her courage and sincerity. However, the true test was yet to come. In the afternoon, a message arrived that reminded Lena of her own fears, a letter revealing her past mistake at the airport, the coffee spill, and her nervous, panicked reaction. She held the note in her hands, her chest tightening. Could this small mistake undo all she had built? Ethan noticed the tension in her face. "Lena," he said gently, "that moment didn't define you. What defines you is how you acted afterward, your courage, your honesty, your heart." Lena took a deep breath and nodded. She realized he was right. The nervous girl who had boarded the plane hours ago had faced fear, survived turbulence, and taken steps into an unfamiliar world with bravery. That single moment of panic at the airport was nothing compared to the strength she had shown since. When the family and friends learned of the incident, there was a brief pause, a moment of judgment. But Ethan stood beside her, unwavering, and spoke with calm authority. Lena's first reaction was human. But what matters is who she is now, someone honest, kind, and courageous. That is what I value, and that is why she belongs here. Slowly, the skepticism in the room melted. Smiles appeared, nods followed, and one by one, the people around her acknowledged her presence with warmth and acceptance. Lena felt a wave of relief and joy wash over her. She had not only survived fear but had also earned respect, trust, and a place in a world she had never thought possible. Later, as evening fell, Lena and Ethan stood on the balcony once more. The city lights sparkled below like 1,000 tiny stars. She felt a calm warmth in her chest, a sense of belonging that had grown stronger with each passing moment. "I never imagined a first flight could lead to this," she said softly. Ethan smiled, his hand brushing hers gently. Life has a way of surprising us. One mistake, one touch, and sometimes, a heart can change forever. Lena looked into his eyes and realized the truth in his words. It wasn't wealth, status, or power that had made this journey meaningful. It was courage, honesty, and the willingness to take risks, even when afraid. Her nervous first flight had brought her to a stranger who became a connection, a guide, and perhaps, something more. That night, as she reflected on her journey, Lena understood that her life had truly changed. The fear she had carried for so long was replaced by hope. The nervous, uncertain girl had grown into someone who could face challenges, embrace new experiences, and trust her heart. And as she closed her eyes that night, Lena smiled, knowing that one accidental touch, one moment of fear, and one brave decision had led her to a life filled with trust, connection, and the promise of love. Her heart was forever changed.